I am a game critic, or at least I aspire to become an even better one. I love talking about games, plain and simple. I've always done it. I've always been passionate about this industry, and about this medium overall. And my likes and interests have shifted over time. I used to be pretty much only an FPS player. Well, FPS and MMORPG player. Yeah, I was the guy who played World of Warcraft, Halo, and Call of Duty, and pretty much that. I played a few games outside of that. They were mainly either third-person shooters like Gears of War or action games. And eventually I migrated over to RPGs and primarily JRPGs. Xenoblade being one of the biggest ones that ever resonated with me. It was a game that affected me like few others had before, and I'm talking about Xenoblade 2 here. And even Xenoblade X. The landscapes, the characters, the story moments, it just all resonated and clicked with me. And those became memories that lasted for a long time, and eventually, well, I became a bit of a Xenoblade YouTuber. And I love covering the game, and I love talking about why I love these games so much, especially for Xenoblade 2, which was a game that, for most of my experience playing Xenoblade 2, had a lot of negativity surrounding that game, with people's reactions and impressions and perceptions about what Xenoblade 2 was and what it was about. And I vehemently disagreed with a lot of people on that game. I viewed it as a bona fide masterpiece, with some of the best characters, story moments, and music I've ever seen or heard. I loved the game to death. And you may be wondering how all these points that I'm talking about are related to one another. Well, it comes down to the point that we are in a bit of an impasse for Xenoblade. When Xenoblade 2 ended, I didn't think Xenoblade would continue. I thought that was going to be the end of the series. The book closed and we move on to newer pastures. But then Xenoblade 3 came out, and Definitive Edition. Not in that order. And it became extremely clear to me, even with the ending of Xenoblade 3, and it was one of the first things I thought of when I beat Xenoblade 3. This series will go on, and Takahashi and crew have pretty much already said that in various interviews and emails. I'm also a firm believer that when you just look at the story that was unraveled there, with Future Redeemed and Xenoblade 3, yeah, it's kind of obvious that this story will continue. At least to me. But we now technically have 4 mainline games in the series. 1, 2, and 3, but also X. And I want to see Xenoblade continue to grow, because I'm a big fan of the series overall, and I want more people to be able to experience, or at least have the opportunity to experience, all those emotions and moments that resonated with me so much. I'm just like a lot of you out there. I love watching reaction videos to people playing through some of my favorite scenes and just seeing how it hit them or affected them. One of my favorites was watching Etika react to the end of Xenoblade 2. There's few other moments in all of gaming that affected me like that ending did, and seeing others be affected the same way was kind of cathartic. But I think there's 2 main killers of long-term series: stagnation and apathy. And I do not want to see Xenoblade become a series that is too entrenched in its own formula. When you look at Xenoblade as a franchise, each game has its own identity and little micro fanbase. Sure, they all feel like Xenoblade, but they all have their own unique identity, gameplay-wise, story-wise, tone, and setting. And we have seen the series try and grow and evolve in the gameplay department over time in each iteration as well. And we saw this a lot with Xenoblade 3, where to me, as someone who had played Xenoblade X before, there are a lot of design philosophies and principles that were straight up lifted from Xenoblade X and reincorporated back into the series with Xenoblade 3. From the openness of the world to the interlink mechanic, at least resembling the Skell idea to some degree if you squinted a little bit and shifted the homework to the side. And then with Xenoblade 3 Future Redeemed, they borrowed different elements from Xenoblade X and reincorporated them back into the mainline series there. Now, what am I getting at here? To me, it is painstakingly obvious that Monolith are trying to take player feedback into account when making each of these new Xenoblade games. They are trying to make the open world more engaging and making the overall gameplay experience more fun and engaging. I don't think they are satisfied with the gameplay formula for Xenoblade. And to tell you the truth, I'm not either. There's a lot that I think should change or be borrowed or reincorporated back into the franchise that the series used to do. And we come upon the topic of critique. And for certain franchises and fan bases, a lot of negativity can be kind of shunned upon because, well, think about it logically speaking. Xenoblade was not always a respected franchise. It was looked down upon and shunned by a lot of other people. People were made fun of for being a Xenoblade fan. And now all of a sudden, Xenoblade is starting to grow a lot in terms of popularity. From the successes of 2 and its continued successes, with the continued success of Definitive Edition for Xenoblade 1, but also 3. And people naturally look down upon people that come into their space and start to insult or badmouth certain aspects of it. You combine that with the fact that a lot of people have deep emotional attachments to a lot of these story moments that may have affected them greatly, and they may perceive criticism as criticism of their reaction to certain moments. And while I think some people argue in bad faith, absolutely, I feel that is also doing a disservice not only to Xenoblade, but to you. Xenoblade is a franchise that, in my opinion, is a diamond in the rough. I wouldn't call it one of Nintendo's, top-tier games in terms of popularity. In terms of gameplay and story, I would. But in terms of popularity and mainstream appeal, it's far from that still. But I think it has potential to go up into those upper echelons. But in order to do so, I think the biggest thing the series needs to shore up when it comes to Xenoblade 4 is its gameplay side of things. Critique is important. Criticism, when warranted, is necessary to be able to identify the problems with the game for 2 main reasons. 1, so that the consumer is better informed about the state of the game so they can make a better, more informed purchasing decision whether or not they want to actually play the game to begin with. But also, as 1B, so that Monolith knows what to improve upon. I think drawing on a lot of ideas from Xenoblade X is absolutely the right way to go, because in my opinion, Xenoblade X has by far the best gameplay in the franchise from top to bottom. Its only real main weakness, well, there's a few, but primarily the pacing at the start of the game. But in terms of world exploration, in terms of actual gameplay, customization, class customization, I think Xenoblade X pretty much takes the cake from top to bottom. And the game is also able to incorporate online elements. Yeah, Xenoblade X was multiplayer. You even had customization when it came to customizing your little barracks area. And your Skell, which was your mech that you could give to each of the party members, customize, name. There was a lot to do, gameplay side of things, for Xenoblade X. And it's been one of the biggest points that I've been trying to raise with a lot of my Xenoblade coverage and critique, that I think the play is for Xenoblade 4 to have the storytelling, pacing, and prowess of Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3, alongside the characterization and character development and character moments of Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3. With the heart-to-heart system of Xenoblade 2 specifically, but then the gameplay feel and world design and world exploration of Xenoblade X. They've always felt like 2 different pieces of the puzzle, where Xenoblade X excelled in the world exploration and gameplay side of things, whereas Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 excelled in the storytelling department and the characterization. If you could somehow combine the 2, well then I think you have the best Xenoblade game bar none on your hands. But I also don't think it's just a matter of straight up lifting old design ideas from both types of series and combining them. And this is where critique is important, because what you may like is different to what I may like. And forced positivity and just saying everything is a-okay is counterintuitive to making or ending up with a better product when it comes to Xenoblade 4 or 5 or whatever game Monolith comes out with next. Constructive feedback is critical, and it's important. And I think Xenoblade 4 has the potential to be the best game in the franchise, simply because it is in the best opportunity and position to learn the lessons from the past. Learn what worked, what didn't work, and go from there. But if everyone is not bothering to talk about the good and the bad in a well-mannered, constructive format, well then ideas that could seem obvious in retrospect may just not be noticed or picked up to begin with. And a lot of the times when I do critique coverage on this channel, whether it's for Xenoblade or for any other game, one of the points I always see sprout up every now and then is this idea of what is the point, and that's a very defeatist mindset for me, and I'm not in favor of that. Yes, me saying that I want a combination of Xenoblade X mechanics and Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 storytelling for Xenoblade 4 would do nothing if I'm the only one saying that. But if a lot of people end up feeling like that, and it becomes known to Monolith and Nintendo that there is a market, a sizable one at that people feel a certain way about a certain mechanic, how it works, the overall flow, maybe the pacing, or whatnot, then that is useful, actionable intelligence. Nothing gets done in this industry because of one singular voice, but a chorus of them, now we're talking. And then at the same time, it's also important to take to heart the idea that not everyone may want what you want, and that goes to me as well. Not everyone may want what I want out of Xenoblade, or Xenoblade 4, and that is fine. That is a reality of the video games industry you have to understand, and internalize and accept. Take World of Warcraft for me, for example. I played that game for almost a decade, and then it became apparent to me that the game was simply designed for a different type of player than me. I no longer found the same joy or passion out of that game that I once did, so what did I do? I drifted apart and left, dipping my toe back in every now and then just to check up on things, but realizing, yeah, it's still not designed for a player like me. And I've also seen what can happen to franchises where a majority of the player base is willing to eat dog crap. They get shoveled trash after trash, and they gladly accept it, saying it's not that bad, and that it could be worse. Or that, look, this piece of trash is a little bit less than the last piece of trash. So they're listening, it's all good, we're turning a corner, lads. And you see terrible decision after terrible decision be made time and time and time again, because enough players are willing to accept that. I don't think Monolith and Xenoblade are in that position, and I don't see them going into that position anytime soon. But what I'm saying is I have seen the effects of fan bases and gaming communities that are all too willing to accept the status quo and what they're told instead of thinking for themselves, standing up for themselves, letting their voices be heard. Not saying that's what the Xenoblade community or fan base are in, or a position that they're in, or whatever. Not saying that. I'm just saying I know the end result of a path walked like this, and I don't want to see Xenoblade start to go down that path. Xenoblade is too damn good of a franchise, and has too much potential right now. I don't want to see that squandered. Dude, I cannot talk today. This is where you come in. In the comments down below, let me know the biggest change you want to see going into Xenoblade 4. Whether it's a gameplay mechanic, a type of story moment, the utilization of more type of music, or whatever. Your wildest fantasy. Let me know what you want to see the most out of Xenoblade 4 in the comments down below. I would love to hear your thoughts and hear your ideas and hear your opinions. And with that, I think I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe. Have a great day. Go play some video games if you can. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.